Notishta Sprishta Salila
Notishta Sprishta Salila
Sanjayam Mukta Murthaja
Sandaya Mukta Murtaja
Nartija Sham Salila.
Vishishta Krishna Salila.
Sanjaya Mukta Mordhaja.
Sanjaya Mukta Murdhaja.
Narticha Samyata Vak.
Anarchita Samyata Vak.
Na Samhita Vahishare.
Na Samhita Vahishare. Vashishta Krishna Salila. Sanjaya Mukta Murdhaja. Anarchita Samyata.
Na samvita vahischaret.
Na Samhita Vahishare. No Chishta Prishta Salila.
Sanjaya mukta murja.
Sanjaya Mukta Murdhaja.
Anarchita samyata vak.
Anarchita Samyata Vak.
Na samhita vahishchari.
Na Samhita Vahishare.
No chishtash prishtash talila.
No Chishta Prishta Salila.
Sandhyaya mukta murdhaja.
Sanjaya Mukta Murdhaja. Anarchita Samyata Vak.
Anarchita Samyata Vak.
Na samhita vahishchari.
Na Samhita Vahishare.
Word for word.
Na.
Uchishta.
After eating.
After eating.
Aprishta Salila.
Aprishta Salila.
Without washing.
Without washing.
Sanjayam.
Sanjayam.
In the evening.
In the evening.
Mukta Murdaja.
Mukta murdhaja.
With the hair loose.
With the hair loose.
Narchita.
Anarchita.
Without ornaments.
Without ornaments.
Asamyata Vak.
Asamyata Vak.
Without being grave.
Without being grave.
Na. Samvita.
Asamhita.
Without being covered.
Without being covered.
Bahi.
Bahi.
Outside.
Outside.
Charet.
Charet.
Should go.
Should go.
Translation, please repeat. After eating,
After eating,
you should not go out to the street
you should not go out the street
without having washed your mouth, hands, and feet.
without having washed your mouth, hands, and feet.
You should not go out in the evening or with your hair loose,
You should not go out in the evening with your hair loose,
nor should you go out unless you are properly decorated with ornaments.
nor should you go out unless you are properly decorated with ornaments.
You should not leave the house
You
You should not leave the house
unless you are very grave
Unless you are very grave
and are sufficiently covered.
and are sufficiently covered.
Everybody want to read before? Who chose this first? Yeah, please.
Kashyapa Muni advised his wife not to go out onto the street unless she was well decorated and well dressed. He did not encourage the mini skirts that have now become fashionable. In Oriental civilization, when a woman goes out onto the street, she must be fully covered so that no man will recognize who she is. All these methods are to be accepted for purification. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, one is fully purified, and thus he remains always transcendental to the contamination of the material world.
And Mike, you're not even amazed about the concern, like you said last time. The woman is very rarely at fault. It's always the man who has this mentality, wanting to take advantage of the woman. So the best thing is don't create conditions where the men get any more inflamed than they already are. To give an example, Eva Gita Pramanada, Vita Kumbhadam, Sutta Vita, Anjana Gavaratali. The man is like butter, the woman is like fire. So when you put the butter in proximity to the fire, butter melts. Fire is fire. There's no fault attributed to the fire. What happens? Fire remains the same throughout the whole process. It's butter that melts. So the whole process for keeping peaceful, serene society is to observe certain protocols in the relationship between men and women. In a traditional Vedic culture, as you know, the woman would not go out in public. She would be protected at home by the father and by the older brothers. Is it called? I want to say halal, but it's not. You know, the big, like in Jaipur, you see one of the biggest. What's it called? You tell me, it's like a huge palace, which the ladies would stay at all the time. They wouldn't just go out in the street, no. And they had slugs, so the ladies could see out what was going on in the street, or they could also see who the visitors were, who the father was receiving in the courtyard and all, but they couldn't be seen. Sort of turrets with sluts and like gun sluts. I want to say hala. What is it? Ahamali? Ahamali, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, wing palace. For the ladies' wing, Now, when Arjuna, the five Pandavas were obliged to stay incognito. I know that, right? Part of the conditions of their having lost the dice game was that they would go 12 years in exile, and then another year where if anybody recognized them, they would have to go into exile for another 12 years, 13 years actually. And so they wanted to blend in as much as they could. And so Bhima loved to cook, so he blended in by going into the kitchens. He was right at home there. Nakula was very good with horses, I believe. So he took care of the horses in Bharata's kingdom, the kingdom of Matsya Desh. Sadhya was good with cows. He took care of the cows for that 1 year. Draupadi, let me get to Draupadi. Draupadi and Arjuna last. Yudhishthira, because he lost the dice game, he was sort of the confidant, the associate of the king. And he gave company to the king wherever he was. And it's interesting because the king associated with Yudhishthira, who was upright and righteous and who had a lot of managerial experience, the kingdom of Matsya flourished like never before during the period of Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira walked in from nowhere. Nobody in Matsya Desh, including King Bharata's queen, knew who Yudhishthira or his four brothers were. He just walked in, as it were, off the street. And it's interesting how, if someone has talent, if someone has ability, they'll rise, no matter what conditions they find themselves in, no matter what disadvantages, no matter what odds are against them, no matter how they're outnumbered, no matter what stacked against them, they'll always find their level. The water knows its home and draws the brook that springs from under light, so flows the good with law unto the soul of pure delight. The waters know their own and draw the brook that springs from yonder heights, so flows the good with equal law to the soul of the delight. So if you use your talents in an honest way, if you use what God's gave you, then you'll find that blessings will chase you down. You don't have to go chasing after the blessing will chase you down. Yudhishthira just came literally off the street. The king noted something great in him, and the king wanted him by his side. And within 12 months of Yudhishthira having walked in off the street, the kingdom flourished 5 times more than it ever flourished before. So those Yudhishthira, Nakula, Sahadeva, and Bhima were taken care of. But now it's going to be harder for Draupadi and Arjuna just to blend in. Draupadi because of her beauty, and she's also got the complexion of Krishna. Arjuna, in addition, you can't disguise fire. You can put some ashes over it, but it'll still glow. It'll still reveal its true nature. So, literally, Arjuna and Draupadi had to be out of the public eye because they would be recognized right away. So Draupadi took a job with the queen as a maidservant. And as I said, the ladies didn't go out in public. So that meant she stayed in the queen's chambers, and nobody saw her face other than the maidservants and the attendants of the queen. And then does anybody know what Arjuna did to keep incognito for 1 year?
Change his gender.
What's that?
He turned into a woman, like
Transcendent.
yeah.
Eunuch.
Yeah.
And how did that happen?
I think he got a curse.
Who's cursed?
The Apsara, what do you call it? Urvasi.
Yeah. You imagine Arjuna, he spent 1 year in Charlotte with his father, Indra. And during that time, one of Indra's Apsaras, actually she's often mentioned because of her excellent beauty, even among the Apsaras, she's exceedingly beautiful. But you know that in the heavenly planets, their one moment is our 6 months. So the time is perceived differently. So Arvasi had many thousands of years ago, she'd had a love affair with Puru, who was like the great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of the Pandavas, from Puru. The Pandavas came, and Puru had actually gone to the heavenly planets and lived with Arvasi. So she became stricken with the beauty of Arjuna, and one day she came and offered herself to Arjuna at night. And can you imagine how insulted she felt when Arjuna said, "Well, you're like my grandmother." She's all lusty, full of expectation. Like said, "I can't, because you're like my grandmother." And then she became upset, and then she said, "Because you won't, spend the night with me, you'll spend a year as a eunuch," which actually would work out quite well, because otherwise there wouldn't have been any way to hide Arjuna. Does anybody know another story from the Krishna book where Arjuna tried to disguise himself and it didn't work out very well? He was recognized after about 10 seconds.
Oh, when they went to kidnap Rukmini. When Krishna went to kidnap Rukmini.
I'm not sure.
Teacher came suddenly. He came suddenly.
Became what?
Teacher want to chastise nobody. Then he came suddenly. That drum teacher.
Arjuna did that.
Suddenly.
Savitri, that was Draupadi's name, right? When she was made servant of the queen, that was her name, Savitri. Well, you remember when Krishna and Bhima and Arjuna went to see Charu, and they went as Brahmins. Remember that from the Krishna book? Krishna and Arjuna and Bhima went as Brahmins. So Jarasandha did not buy that for 1 minute. He particularly mentioned the marks, you carry a bow, and you have marks on your shoulder, and then a bowman, he has a lot of scrapes, so you can tell by the scars on the forearm and the lines on the shoulder, and then also by the fact that Brahmins they don't have big muscles.
When Arjuna was there to marry Draupadi, he was in the Brahmin's attire and was really recognized.
They mentioned there were some doubts, there were some suspicions. In fact, the motivation behind the other warriors for not recognizing Arjuna was that they didn't want him to compete. So they didn't want him to compete for Draupadi. They didn't want him to try his hand at shooting the arrow. And so it was in their best interest to see him as a Brahmin, because a Brahmin couldn't actually enter into the competition. So it was self-serving that they so-called didn't recognize Arjuna. Otherwise, his physical characteristics were impossible to disguise. So the issue at hand here is no one can recognize him, but everybody will recognize him as soon as they see him. So the curse worked out quite conveniently because he went into the chambers with the women. He became the dancing master of Udara, who was Virata's daughter. And as such, nobody saw him for a year. None of the ladies were allowed to go out in public. And so for 1 year, Arjuna remained incognito and disguised. So does anyone have any questions at this point?
Why were the women not allowed to go in public? I mean, wasn't there discrimination?
They could go, Prabhu talked about his own mother. So talked about his own mother. This is in the late 1800s. When his mother went out to do any chores or to visit somebody, she would go in a palanquin. Because of men. Because of men. Dayato Visham Pumsham Sangha Chandaya Kama Koda Vidayate. Right? Contemplating out through the senses, one becomes attached. Through attachment, lust develops, lust, anger, and from anger, bewildered, revenge. So it all starts with a glance. It all starts with a glance. You drive down the streets of Toronto, Prabhupada said they didn't have any miniskirts. How many miniskirts do you see when you drive down Yonge Street?
It's their fault that they are wearing short clothes out, but that we have wrong intentions. We don't have control over our senses. It's like it's the man's fault who doesn't have control over his senses, or the women's fault.
Well, it's the men's proclivity. It's the men's proclivity to contemplate. You know, your eyes might fall accidentally, but then if you're interested in spiritual life, you'll divert right away. But if you take a second look, I think it's called rubbernecking, isn't it? Rubbernecking. Rubbernecking. Taking a second or third or fourth look. Maybe the first look is not so dangerous, but when you make a decision, when your mind tells you, look again, and you listen to your mind, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the cycle, the process. Dayato Visham. Dayato means just taking that second or third glance. And what's the next word? Vishaya. Vishaya. Vishaya is never a good word. Sometimes it even means poison. Dayato Visham Pumsam. And Pumsam means usually man. Pumsam doesn't often refer to women. So it's really talking about the man taking that second or third look. I remember first time I met Swami Narayan, Swamis. It was in Whittier. I was in the Los Angeles temple. He asked me to go to the Swami Narayan temple in Whittier to give a talk to the young people on vegetarianism. And there were two sannyasis that had just come over from India, from Gujarat. And they were very nice fellows. They were really sweet fellows, spoke perfect English, very humble. They served, after we had the talk, they served all the kids lunch and everything. So I never had much experience. This is early 80s, just like 1980. I hadn't had a lot of familiarity with Swami Narayan, so we got to talk and I asked some questions and all. So I said, how long are you over here from India? And they said 6 weeks. I said, is there any significance to that? They said, and this is at that time, I don't know if they've changed their rules, but they won't let any sannyasis stay in America for more than 6 weeks. Because it's just too dangerous. And women and men, there's too much that's uncovered. And there's too much, they consider that there's too much risk for a sannyasi to stay a sannyasi. And so they would pull them back after 6 weeks. And then they sent them in tubes. He said, we're never allowed to go anywhere on our own. We need that support. Another sannyasi. And then another thing was that if they should look at it, and again, it's not that there's anything wrong with women. women are beautiful. But if they should happen to look on the face of a woman, they have to fast for 24 hours. They have to fast for 24 hours. So we don't go to those extremes because we see men and women, we're all brothers and sisters, Prabhu said. In India, they don't usually have men and women together in the ashrams, but we can do it because we see everything as belonging to Krishna. We're trying to cultivate it. It's not that I want to enjoy that woman. I want to take charge of that woman. I want to, I want that woman. It's that, I want to do what Krishna wants. Maybe Krishna intends for me to be married to that woman, or maybe not, or maybe another woman. But I'm not putting my conditions on my service. Every time I chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, I'm saying Krishna, take the conditions away, whatever conditions might be there, whatever selfish desires might be there, you please purify me of those desires, and just let me serve you. Prabhupada said in his youth, he wanted to marry a girl who was very beautiful. Remember that?
Yeah.
He said that he was very attracted to one girl, but his father made him marry someone who wasn't so beautiful. She was more plain. And that was very intelligent of his father because his father was thinking in the long term. In the long term. When you get old, no one's beautiful. Right? It's a fact we sometimes forget when we're young, because we're just so much in the moment, But when nobody's beautiful when they're old, see what I'm saying? So if you marry someone because they're beautiful, then if you still have that same mindset, you're not going to be happy when they're old because the reason you married them is no longer there. See what I'm saying? If that's how shallow you are, the same reason you married them is the same reason you're going to lose all interest in them once they get to be 35, 40, 50, or 60. So the very same reasons that you got together, if there's no change there, if there's no improvement, no purification, then those very same reasons are going to cause you to go apart within about 20 to 30 years. That's what I'm saying. So you need to choose your future spouse based on more considerations just on the physical. Prabhupada talks about infatuation. Infatuation is something. It's something that's very powerful. It can overwhelm your senses. You feel like when you're into the grips of infatuation, you feel like you have to have that. All of American consumerism is based on that. It's how to infatuate you with a product, the shape of it, the texture of it. They even put smell in some products. They'll actually put a little aroma, that new car smell, right? That new car smell. Or when you go through Toys R Us, They have Toys R Us in Canada.
Oh yeah.
I haven't even seen that in America. Some of the toys actually they have smells. And they actually, as well as touch and sight, they actually have smells in them. So it's all about taking advantage of our tendency to be infatuated for a short-term goal. And then they're counting on the fact that we have this credit card and we're not paying cash. We'll give them the credit card and then pay later. See what I'm saying? It was a joke. A mother and her daughter. Her mother and their daughter, they were in the supermarket. The mother says, "My birthday's coming up next week, so I'm going to buy myself a present." She bought herself a fur coat. And the daughter says, "Just think of all the suffering that poor creature's going to undergo because of the coat." And the mother said to the daughter, she said, "Well, I'm paying my credit card, so your father won't have to pay for it actually for another month or so." So, you know, that's what we have to be aware of as spiritual aspects. Infatuation. We have to be able to discriminate between something that's flashy, that will give immediate pleasure, and something that will do us good in the long run. You know, when you're in high school, you just had to marry that girl, but somewhere or other you jilted you and you ended up marrying someone more plain. And now, 30, 40 years later, you've had a few kids by her, and you really, really love her. Love is a function of character. Love is not something that happens. People say, I fell in love. You don't fall in love. You fall into a ditch. But you don't fall in love. I remember I was reading something that a National Geographic photographer had written. He was in his late 30s, early 40s, and he was traveling on a train through India, second class, third class. And it was an old farmer. You know, you've seen millions of them, a little old farmer. Probably had like maybe 2 teeth in his mouth, wearing a doughy. And they got to talking. And the farmer says, so you're married? And the man says, no, I'm not married. Why not? He says, well, I haven't met my one true love. And this little Indian farmer, he started laughing and laughing and laughing and pulling aside. He couldn't stand it. And the Westerner's like, what's so funny? He says, you find your one true love only after many, many years of marriage. You find your one true love only after many, many years of marriage. Love is something that unfolds. Love is something that is an outgrowth of a vow. You stand before the priest, you stand before God, you stand before your parents and your well-wishers, and you say, come health or sickness, honor or dishonor, rich or poor, I'm going to walk the path, the entire path of this life with this woman or with this man. And because you made a vow, that's the soil out of which love comes. You're faithful to each other. People talk about us in Spanish Forgita. How did you get, you go to an area where it's 90% Mormons, there were no Indians when we went there. There's quite a few now, but there weren't when we went there. There were no devotees. So they said, how did you even get a storefront rented? How did you get anything? How did you get a toe in the door? What to speak of? 2 big temples, radio stations. And I said, there's a power in going to an area and just saying, from the beginning, not whether I like it or not, or whether it's good or not. We've actually had a lot of devotees come and stay with us for some time, and then they leave. Well, it's too hot, it's too cold, or I don't like the Mormons, or I don't like this. But we went there, and there was no turning back. We went there, and we basically made a promise to ourselves that whatever comes, we're gonna dedicate ourselves to this community. And what happens when you do that is the community responds. You might have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, you're going out, you've gone to places, you've had a few days, you've gone to supper and all. But until you actually commit to that person, they don't have to commit to you. You know what I'm saying? You love a girl, you would like them to commit to you, but if you're not committing to them, they shouldn't commit to you. When you make the commitment to the girl that you want to spend your life with, that's when she'll make the commitment to you. It's not enough just to be compatible, go out, get along, have good conversations, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, you have to have the conversation. Are you going to commit to me? Are you going to commit to me? That's what the girl wants to know. Are you going to commit to me? Because she would be foolish to commit to you unless you're willing to commit to her. So when you go to the altar, and this is one of the reasons why Indian families spend so much money on weddings. About 10 years ago, They said the average Indian wedding in Los Angeles cost the same amount to buy a house. $250,000. Well, why is that? Why is so much money spent on a wedding? Because there's no going back. You know, it's not like, well, if we don't get along after a year or so, we'll split. No. The point is, you make a vow. You make a vow in front of God, in front of the Brahmins, in front of your friends, and that vow defines you. You are only as good as the vows that you keep. If you make a vow and you break it, it's like a pot that has a crack in it. It loses all of its water. But you make a vow and you keep it, you get more and more shakti, you get more and more potency. And it's not like I make a vow and if everything's sweet and happy and beautiful and all, and then I'm able to keep the vow because everything's compatible, everything's good. See what I'm saying? When you make a vow, you're agreeing that you're acknowledging that even if things aren't good, even if my senses aren't pleased, I'm still going to follow this vow. I'm going to be true to my word. Nowadays, kids, especially Westerners, they make their vows, but they're thinking, I will stay with this woman as long as she pleases my senses. And the woman's thinking, I'll make a lifelong vow, but actually, in their minds, they're already cheating because they're thinking, I'll stay with this man as long as they please my senses. And so 50% of all marriages in America end in divorce. And those two kids that profess love for each other in public, amongst all their friends and relatives and all, they become bitter enemies. They become bitter enemies after 1 or 2 years. Because each one had the expectation that the other would satisfy all their desires. The man thought that the wife was Krishna, and the wife thought that the man was Krishna. And when they found out they weren't Krishna, they became bitter enemies. See, we're fortunate because we know who Krishna is, and we're not going to take any cheap imitation or be misled. So marriage comes, love comes after many, many years of marriage. In India, the marriages were arranged. You know, you have the what is it, the dupata? What's that called? Astamila? Where you,
Swayambar.
what's it called?
Swayambar.
The cloth
No,
between
it's the cloth. Antarbhakra, I don't know. The brothers of the
bride.
bride, they hold a cloth in front of the groom, so the bride makes her entrance. And then the priest, he chants some mantras, and when he stops, this is the way I do it anyway, when he stops, they drop the cloth. See what I'm saying? So they shut up, Madhava Krishna, Satyana, Haridir, Manjana Charida, Bhaktivana, Chasana, shut up. And when the priest stops, they drop the cloth. And then the bride and the groom give them flowers. So they throw flowers at each other. So this is rooted in antiquity, because in ancient times, that would have been the first time that they saw each other, the first time they met, because the parents would have arranged everything. Parents and aunts and uncles and professional matchmakers. Now you may think that's impersonal, uncool, but it has great advantages. One is they've had a lot of experience, they have a lot of contacts, and another is they care perhaps more about your future than you do. You know, you could be distracted by your youthful hormones and all like that. You know, you could be waylaid. But they know what the phases of marriage are. You know, what you have to have after the infatuation phase, what the real substance of the character of the men and the women have to be in order to have a lifelong marriage. And so the parents would arrange the marriage based on looks, education, and most important, character and family bringing. And also two families are getting married, so there's some practical points too. How much this family will bring, how much, it's like two dynasties are getting together. You double your capabilities. And so the reason you give the man and woman flowers, can anyone guess? Why do you give them flowers and ask them to throw flowers at each other?
I don't know if it's true or not, but like it said that whoever throws the flower first, they get to have like the most say in the marriage afterwards.
I say that. I'm not doing it when I make a joke. When they're there and I'm explaining the whole thing, I say you're going to throw flowers at each other. And I say, first of all, I say don't throw them hard because you don't want to give your spouse a black eye. And then I say, secondly, it's probably not true. It's just one of those folk beliefs. You know, it's probably not true at all. But people sort of believe that whoever hits the other one with a flower first will be the dominant one in the marriage. You know. And then I say, if the man's smart, he'll know what to do now. Let the woman hit him first. And then they drop the clock. So, can anyone guess the reason for that?
This is like if you don't like the other person, you can just ignore from the flowers and just keep them. You can change your mind.
The 1
Are
second
you
of
serious?
silence.
Are you serious? Your parents, both your parents, usually the bride's parents spend most of the money. This girl's parents have spent up to $500,000 on the wedding, months and months of preparation. Relatives have flown in all over the world, and when the cloth drops, you're going to say, "I don't like her." I don't think so. I don't think so. So where does the tradition of throwing flowers come from, you think? Okay, they haven't seen each other before. Awkward, like, right? Is that potentially a little bit like, can you imagine, like, their hearts are thumping, oh my God, I'm going to spend the rest of I'm going to wake up and look at this face every morning for the rest of my life. I'm going to smell this breath every morning for the rest of my life. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, so full of tension. Both of them are just completely wound up. So when the cloth drops, it's a night, you know, they throw flowers. And you have to laugh. You have to take it like, see what I'm saying? So it's just a way of, you know, defusing, letting some pressure out of the top. And there's nothing there, you know, sambandha, prayojana, abhidaya, sambandha, prayojana, abhidaya, Prabhupada explains. Our coming to Krishna goes through the same three phases. You know, you say, oh, I'm a Krishna devotee, I love Krishna. We don't know Krishna. We don't know Krishna. We like the idea of Krishna. We say we're not this body, Brahmasmi. We don't know we're not this body. You know, it's just it sounds good. You know, it sounds like a good idea. Krishna sounds like a good idea. Devotional service sounds like a good idea. But we're pretty much like that couple that have never seen each other before. We've really never seen ourselves. We've really never seen Krishna. And so that's why we're not spontaneously engaged in devotional service. We're keen on those who are spontaneously, and we're taking their mercy as it descends into the session. But everything we do right now is pretty much mechanical. We're just like the husband and wife. What happens is, as we mentioned, the girl has lived in her maternal home. She's hardly ever gone outside. She's never mixed. The only male she knows are her brothers and her fathers. She's lived a completely sheltered life. And the marriage ceremony takes place at her home. And then after the marriage ceremony, she goes to the groom's home. New husband, new family, she doesn't even know where the spoons are. You know, she doesn't know anything. And that's why many of her friends go with her. If she's high class, so there's some waiting maids and all that go with her to help ease the transition. But can you imagine in that house, the formality, between her and her new husband? And then also, traditionally, don't quote me on that, the girl could have been married as early as like 13 or 14 years old, so there's no honeymoon, there's no consummation or anything. No, it's too late. No, you can't make a report of that. The moment is come and gone. So there isn't any question of physicality at this point. There's no physicality for months, maybe even years. See what I'm saying? But she's been trained. She's been trained in the domestic arts, how to cook and clean and raise the children, and she has good character, she's clean. And he's been trained how to be a provider, how to be considerate, how to worship the woman. The woman is the term better half, the woman is the better half, comes from Sanskrit. That term actually has its origin in Sanskrit. No man can sit and perform a yajna without his wife present. That's why at Kanchipur, when Brahma sat with, I don't know what it was, Saraswati or Gayatri, I forget which one of his wives, wasn't there, he couldn't perform the yajna at Kanchipur. He had to marry another wife. That's another topic. But anyway, he had to have a wife with him. He had to have a wife with him in order to perform the yajna, because no man is complete without the wife. And in fact, the wife is the better half. The wife is the better half. So it's very formal. It's very stilted. However, and that's sambandha, right? Sambandha. Well, remember, after doing their duties, they start to, she's really good, he's really good. She relaxes me. I enjoy walking across the threshold after a day's work. I look forward to it. She would be a good friend to have. And she's thinking in the same way about the husband. She's gradually transferring her attachment dependency from her father and her brothers to her new husband. And Prabhupada said, generally speaking, even in this society where boys and girls just, girls know dozens of boys, intimately, I'm not saying anything you don't know, still Prabhupada said the first love is the one that's special. The first boy is the one that always is special. So there's that strong cycle. God made the woman in such a way that outside of the father and the brothers, she is highly likely to fall head over heels, forever, no turn, in love with the firstborn she has any intimate relationships with. So that's why, in an ideal society, the first boy is going to be her husband. It's not good. It's not good if the first boy is not her husband, and we see how not good it is. 50% of marriages and abortion. Oh my God, let's not even think about that. Let's not even think about that. So if the first boy she meets and has conversations with and sits with him in a private place, that should be her husband. That's what she's psychologically equipped to lapse into, and that's what's going to protect her and give her the best, most fruitful, productive life. And of course, any man, if a woman is like, you're the sun, you're the moon, you're the stars, for me, then, guys, right, that's it for us, right? That's all we want. That's all we want. We just want a woman to be devoted to us, if we're honest. That's all we want in life. We just want a woman to think that the ground we walk on is sacred. That's what we want to. So when you have those elements, then you're starting to have the second phase, sambandha, Abhideya. They're starting to be friends. They're starting to be comfortable. They're starting to make jokes, have fun together. And then, I'm just finishing this up, but Mars, and then finally, they're best friends. They're companions for same thing, same three phases in ordinary marriage that we go through in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness, we get up, we don't always feel like getting up from already, but we do. We don't always feel like chanting around, but we do. That's called samadhi. That's doing our duty, that's showing our character. And as we do that over a period of time, we become comfortable. We actually begin to realize that I am the spirit soul, not this body. We begin to realize something about Krishna. And then finally in the third stage, Prabhupada says, the magic begins. Desha Sutati Yogdana Bhajanam Dham.
Thanks so much. Been talking about domestic situations. Yeah. This morning, a couple came over. Well, about 3 families came. One largely. One couple it was her marriage. Or birthday, sorry. Yeah, so the second couple, one fellow he came and he said, Prabhu says, I try to chant and I try to do that every day, but after about a third day, and then I go for a blank period and start again, I don't seem to have any interest. I just don't have any drive or taste. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And I said, well, you just have to stick to these things, you know. And the one thing about Srila Prabhupada, you know, when I first saw pictures of Prabhupada, I wasn't that attracted. I mean, he didn't look attractive to me. You know. And I just followed the course. And, you know, it grows on you. And after a while, you develop appreciation. My God, he did all of this for me. You know, he showed me how to party, how to have a good time without destroying myself. Showed me how to, you know, that I can sing, I can dance, I can have a party, have the best food, you know. And he did all that for us at great inconvenience on his side. So the love is not something that's like love at first sight usually. The real love is deeper and it goes after some time. Time is the great subduer.
Yeah, my wife is 78.
And you're 77.
77. Physically, she's, you know, what can I say? But I'm starting to get emotional, you know. I'm actually, I don't think I'd be able to say this, but I love her so much. She's far less physically attractive than she was 54 years ago, but I love her so much. And I hope that every one of you can love your spouse like I love